Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a new year and a new series of videos for 2025. So in today's video, I'm going to be starting my Cherries and Cherubs, or Cherubs and Cherries junk journal, and some other projects as well, which I'm going to be using the same digital that I created, which is in my Etsy shop, the Cherubs and Cherries digital. It's an 11-page digital. You can head on over to my Etsy shop, pick it up, or you can head on over to my Patreon, become a Patreon member in one of my tiered membership levels, and get all of my digitals for free, or I should say included in your membership. There's 3 different membership tiers, so go on over and check out that if you want to get any of my digitals. But like I said, we're going to be using this brand new digital Cherubs and Cherries for this project. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button down below, turn on that little notifications bell so you're notified when I post new videos. All right, let's get started with this project. All right, so for this project, I am going out of my comfort zone a little bit. I tend to do journals or books that are a little bit more organized and, you know, straight lines and clean cuts. And I do add a lot of like ephemera and charms and bits and pieces, but everything for the most part, you know, stays confined to my actual cover, my front and back cover when I'm putting journals together. And my pages are all pretty, you know, aligned with a straight cut. Most everything has straight edges and, like I said, looks like a book. With this journal that I'm going to be doing in this project, this is going to be kind of like a Valentine's journal. I am actually going to work outside the box a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a different style, a little bit more tattered and torn. That's the only way I can really describe it. So to do that, I'm going to show you a few of the things that I'm going to use to start this project. And then we're going to be, there's going to be a few videos within this series that are going to show you how I'm going to put it together, different things that I'm going to put in it. And then this journal is going to be kind of more of a small daily journal for the month of February. So I'm working on it now in January. It is going to have kind of a Valentine feel to it, but I'm also incorporating the cherubs and the cherries. I wanted to use up some of the angels and cherubs that I had left over from my Christmas projects. So I figured, you know what, why not include them in this project for this month? So first of all, let's show you some of the digitals, because I have a brand new digital kit that I just released in my Etsy shop. You can go pick that up if you would like. It's 11 pages of digitals that I'm going to be using not only for this project, but for some other crafting projects throughout the month as well. Now, I've already gone ahead and fussy cut a bunch of the images out. Now, I'm trying to use very Victorian inspired images in this project because, like I said, I want this project to be tattered, torn, messy, very old looking. And I thought a lot of those Victorian images kind of gave way to that type of journaling that like I said, I want to get out of my comfort zone with this and just try to do something that I don't normally do. Try to just be creative in a different way without trying to be so confined into like a regular size page. So again, I've gone ahead and cut out some of these digitals. These are all digitals that are going to be included in the kit. Some of my digitals that I have here, or some of the images, are actually not in the Cherubs and Cherries digital. It's also these, I'm also kind of incorporating some of my last month's digitals as well, because they do kind of go together, some of them. This was one of the Christmas cardinal roses and cardinals collection, but like I said, there's a lot of colors that's you know work well with each other. So this is an image from that kit, but most everything that I'm going to show you is from this new kit. So these digitals right here, like I said, I've already cut out a lot of things. There's some cherry blossoms. There's a lot of digital vintage Valentine cards like this one. And I also experimented printing on different paper types with this digital as well. Normally I print on like a white cardstock, and sometimes I'll print on like a printer paper, just like a copy paper style if I'm doing, you know, multiples of something and I'm using my Cricut to cut things out. I am not using my Cricut at all for this project. So everything I'm either fussy cutting, I'm tearing, or you know, I'll be using scissors or whatever to do this project. So no Cricut for this specific journal at all. I'm trying to stay away from my Cricut and just use my hands more. So again, I have all of these really pretty, these are, I believe, postcards. These are digital images of vintage postcards. So I've got a few different ones, as you can see here. And I've also tried to incorporate a lot of blues in this project. So you don't typically think of blues in Valentine projects, but I really loved the look of those kind of vintage blues in the Victorian cards. So I wanted to incorporate a lot more of those blue colors. So here's another cute little digital image. This was just the Cherubs and Cherries title that was on one of my pages. I actually ripped that out because I thought that would make a cute little tab. Here's some cherry images, some more cherry blossoms, another rose image that's on one of the digitals. Here's another little image of some letters all tied up with a rose. This is one of my images from my Cardinals and Roses last month. So again, not in this kit, but it is last month's kit. So if you're a Patreon member, you can get those images for free as well. Here's another cute little card. I cut that one out. Here is a pretty lady cherub angel that I designed, and she is on one of the pages. So I fussy cut her out. She's like a Victorian cherub angel with a pretty bow in her hair. Here's another little card from last month's, but I thought the colors worked well also. Here's a little strip of bows that comes in the kit as well. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this, but I have that to use. Now here's some of the other papers that I haven't cut yet. Like I said, there's 11 pages to this kit, so there's a lot here to work with. And like I said, I also experimented on different paper types and different paper colors. So I used 3 different types of papers. I use a ecru color linen paper, which is this paper right here that I printed. I printed a lot of my fussy cuts on that linen paper, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see in the camera or not, but this linen paper is like a textured linen paper, which is really pretty, and I love that it gave the images just texture. A lot of those older postcards have that texture, so I thought those would be really nice to kind of try to mimic that with the textured linen paper. So I used that. I also used a very heavy bright white cardstock, which is this one right here. I printed on a hard cardstock with this one. This is some different pockets or tuck spots or tags that I'm going to be using. There's also some stamps and some little other pieces of ephemera that I'll probably incorporate. But this is a nice heavy cardstock. I did 2 pages of the nice heavy cardstock. This was the other page that I did the heavy cardstock. This is actually a copy of some vintage wrapping paper that I have. Now I actually have this wrapping paper. This is the original. Now, as you can see, because I printed this on a bright white background, it's gonna look slightly different than the original. The original is kind of, well, definitely, it's an older wrapping paper. It's probably from like the 80s, I'm thinking. And it's kind of frail, but it is more of an ecru color backing. So it is going to look slightly different than the actual digital image, but it's an exact replica of that. So depending on the type of paper and the quality that you printed out, you'll be able to get different effects with these images. But I wanted to print this out on a cardstock because I was thinking that this might be a nice either back cover or inside cover to my journal. So like I said, I'm really experimenting with a lot of different techniques that I don't normally use. So that is that one. So those are the two heavy cardstocks that I printed out. Now the rest of them are just printed on my regular kind of lightweight cardstock. I use this cardstock for almost all of the images that I print out using my Cricut. When I send out die cuts, I always print on this. It's a little bit more lightweight. It's easy to fold. It's easy to tear. It does print nicely, so the colors print nicely on it. And it's not as bright of a white. I don't know if you can tell the difference in the camera. It's not as bright of a white as this one. It's a little bit more subdued. But this is kind of my everyday one that I use, and I print on this a lot. So this is another kind of background page with some writing, and I have a little cherub on a white doily down here in the front, so you could fussy cut that out. I'll probably use like a larger segment of this as like a page cover up of some sort or background. So there's that one. Here's another background. There's quite a few background pages in this because, like I said, I want to do a lot of tearing and layering. I want to use a lot of fabrics, which I'm going to show you the fabrics in a minute. But here's another blue lace fabric with another little red doily and another little vintage cherub die cut or fussy cut that you can cut out if you'd like. So there's that one. Here is another beautiful, this is like a tapestry or I believe the original piece was a piece of furniture fabric or a curtain, one or the other. I'm not really sure what the original was, but I tried to, you know, when I uploaded this to turn this into a digital, I tried to make it as authentic to the actual piece as possible. And it's just this really gorgeous kind of blue green. Again, I changed the colors a little bit on this just to match the colors that kind of went with the rest of the kit, but I really love that kind of tapestry look. So this will be another really good background page. Okay, now we have some more ephemera pages. Again, I designed some digital postcards. Again, all of the cherubs and cherries, I tried to include, you know, images that worked well with that whole theming. So this was actually a vintage chocolate box that I kind of incorporated some cherries. This could be like maybe chocolate covered cherries. It says my favorite chocolates on the box. That's probably an early 1900s box, digital. And then there's the back side of a Valentine card. Here's another postcard you could fussy cut. So there's the back side of one and the front side. And then there's also like a nice background, which this is actually a background that I used in a previous digital, but I used it kind of as a background. So you can fussy cut out the lace. There's a little bit of lace detail. So I tried to utilize as much of the paper as possible when creating these digitals. Here's another one. Again, you've got that tapestry background, some nice vintage images. There's a cute little cherub as well with the blue ribbon. More vintage Victorian die cut cards here as well. So lots of ways that you can use all of these different papers. Here's another nice piece that can be a background piece. Again, you can fussy cut, use pieces of it, cut out the lace. And again, depending on how you print and what type of paper you print on will change the images as well. So there's some ideas of what the digitals include. Now let's go over really quickly some other things that I'm going to be using in this project. So like I said, this is going to be kind of a tattered and torn style journal. Very junky, very messy, not my typical. I have done what I thought was more tattered and torn before, but it's not really what I'm going for. I'm really going for like kind of just a messy looking journal, if that makes sense. So what I've been doing is I've been kind of playing around with different texture chipboards. I have a whole bunch of them that I've kind of saved. I've cut a few pieces out to roughly a size that I would like, but I don't even know if this is the size that I'm going to stay confined to. Because I'm going to do a front cover and a back cover, and then I'm actually going to bind it very different than I normally bind my journals. I am not going to do the typical stitching with a needle and thread in a in a signature like I did, for example, in this one. I will do a stitching down the center of the signature, and it's a 3-stitch method, so, or 3-hole stitch method. I'll do the 3 holes on the spine of the book. I'm not going to do a binding technique this way at all in this journal. I am going to use all gluing, and I will be stitching with my sewing machine a little bit, but it's mostly going to be glue and sewing machine stitching. I'm not going to do any typical stitching on the sides of my journal. So again, just some different chipboards. Again, I'm not even sure if this is what I'm going to use, but I just pulled a few out to play with. Then I have a bunch of different appliques and laces that I've pulled out. These are really pretty kind of off-white colored appliques with some pearls. This was like a little baby headband. I think I like the little bow on it, so I might pull the bow off. Here's another piece of really pretty kind of lace trim. So I might use that. I thought this was gorgeous. This is kind of a champagne colored lace. I'm not really even sure what this went to, but it was very Victorian looking. So I do want to use some of that. And I also have this old vintage tablecloth that I'd cut up because it was all stained, and I tried to cut out some of the really pretty images or the really pretty stitching detail on that tablecloth. So I'm going to probably use a lot of this fabric pieces in this journal. All right, so I'm actually going to start out the project working on the cover for this journal. Now, like I said, I'm not going to try to keep it confined to the cover as far as the page sizes go. And I'm also going to try to not use the same size front and back cover. I want to have a variation of sizes. I want a layered look. I want to use a lot of different textiles. I want to use lace. I want to use fabric. I want to use papers. I want to use other pieces in this journal to give it kind of a tattered, worn, kind of very personalized feel. So I've picked out 3 different size pieces of chipboard. Now I have more, but I thought that these ones probably will work the best. This was actually an 8.5 by 11 box bottom. So I cut it in half, and then I trimmed off the top. I was playing around with just rounding the edges with scissors. So this was the same size as this, but I cut this down a little bit so that it's a little bit shorter. I'm thinking I want the large piece in the back as the back cover. I want this as my front cover, and then I want to do a smaller kind of flap or fold down of some sort on the front cover. So that's kind of my thought process behind putting this together. So what I am doing now is I am just rounding my edges, and I'm just using some scissors. I don't want them to be perfect. I want them to be very I don't want to think too much about this project when I'm doing it. I want to try to do it fairly quickly without trying to make everything so symmetrical and trying to make everything so, evenly spaced. I want it to, be cohesive, and I want it to look, the pieces to all go together, but I don't want it to be like a cookie cutter, the typical thing that I normally do. All right, so here are 3 pieces. Now for this one, I don't think I'm gonna round the edges yet. I'm not sure what I wanna do with this yet, but I wanna start to kind of cover some of these, at least to get started. So I'm thinking the back cover, we'll work on the back one first. I wanna use this digital, which is the digital of the Valentine wrapping, the vintage Valentine wrapping paper that I have. So what I'm gonna do with this is I am just going to take my Fabrifix glue, and I printed this on kind of a heavier cardstock. I'm gonna take my Fabrifix glue, and I am just going to put a good amount of the Fabrifix glue right on to the back or front of my back cover, whichever it's going to be. I don't even know what it's going to be yet, but I'm going to put a good amount. I just want it to make sure I got the edges really good. And then we'll lay this down on the back side of my digital. So there's my digital right there. Let's just lay it down. I don't know exactly where it's gonna lay, but I know it's gonna lay in there within the image. I hope. It should all be within the image. Okay, there. It's definitely within the image now. And then what I'm gonna do is, instead of cutting or using my knife, I'm gonna tear this. So I'm gonna go and just tear using the edge of my chipboard as kind of a guide to tear. Like I said, I'm gonna do a lot of tearing and not using my Cricut because I don't want these perfect edges. I want a very worn look. All right, so there is that. I probably can save a good amount of this, throw that away. I can probably use that for something else, so we'll save that. But here is a nice torn page there. All right, there it is right there. All right, now on the back side, because I don't know if this is going to be the back cover or the inside of the back cover yet. I'm really not sure. On the opposite side, I want to do a fabric. So let's see what I have for fabric. All right, so I have this white with a pink bow, very light cotton fabric. I have a good amount of it. I think it came from a Fabric Square. But what I'm thinking I want to do is, I think I'm going to take this card. It's just a greeting card with a picture of a rose on the front. Now, I'm thinking I want to do another little flip out on the back cover as well. Kind of like what I'm doing on the front cover, but I'm going to do this on the inside of the back cover. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just take my card, I'm folding it inside out so that the image is on the inside, because if I leave it like this, my image will be upside down, and I don't want it upside down. So I'm folding it inside out. I'm going to take my Fabrifix and I'm going to put this on the back flap of my card. Come on, Fabrifix. And just make sure I have enough there. And then we're gonna glue this just to the inside cover of my chipboard. So this will be the flap, and when you open it up, it will have this image of the rose, and then we'll do something on the front here. But now to cover this up, I'm gonna cover this up with this fabric. So what I want to do is, like I said, I don't want this to be I don't want it to be too put together. So I'm just going to flip my fabric over, and I'm actually going to tear this fabric. I'm just going to use my cover as a guide for what size I need. And I'm going to do a little cut on one side and a little cut on the other side, and then we'll just tear that fabric so it will be about the right size. Let's see. There. So now I have a little fabric piece that's just about the right size to cover that back inside cover. All right, and again, I don't want it to be too perfect. I want it to be kind of rough looking and it's okay if the edges are sticking out. I'm actually going to fray this top edge just a little bit because I like that little frayed look. And we'll do just like we did. We're going to use our Fabrifix glue, and we'll put it all over this inside. Now I could use Mod Podge as well. I definitely could use Mod Podge as well. I was thinking about painting this back inside cover first, but I think I'm going to cover it up with something else. Just do lots of little layers. Maybe put another pocket on the inside of the flap or something. So I just want to make sure I have the edges covered really well. And then we'll take our fabric. Now this glue dries quick, so you gotta kind of work quick. And we're just gonna cover that inside cover. Now as you can see, you can kind of see the words bleed through this fabric a little bit down here, which that's what I was saying. I think I'll cover this up with something else, but that's completely fine for now. I just want to have something to start with. Now you see what I mean by having it kind of just look a little bit messy and not perfect. That's what I'm going for. I don't want this to be perfect. I want pieces to stick out. I want pages to look rough. I haven't done any distressing on this because what I'm thinking is I think I'm going to try a different type of distressing with white paint once we kind of get the construction of this cover done. Okay, so for the front cover, this is the bigger portion of the front cover. Remember, we're going to do kind of another little fold out or flip out flap of some sort on the front cover. And have a few different layers going on. But for the main portion of the front cover, I'm going to use this blue floral kind of tapestry. And just like I did with the other, the back piece, I'm going to go ahead and glue this right to my paper and then tear it out. Okay, so as you can see, when I glued it down, I did hit some of the border. When I printed this out, I did not print it without a white border all the way around. I printed it, usually I'll print all the way to the edge of the paper. I forgot to this time, so I do have a little bit of that white border down here, but that's okay because I'm gonna cover this up with some sort of a lace or something at some point. So there is my front cover, the back portion of my front cover. Now we've just got to figure out what we want to do to this little flap or fold that's going to go in front of that front cover. Okay, so to keep it uniform with the back cover, I've cut out another little fabric square that matched this pink ribbon or pink bow. And I'm gonna glue this little fabric square to this side of my other little piece of cardstock. Now I cut this piece of cardstock down. This was a little bit taller, a little bit longer. Originally, I cut it down a little bit so that way you can see more of the blue background of the front cover. So I'm just gonna go ahead and again glue this fabric with my Fabrifix really quickly down onto my chipboard here. All right, and let's see, let's just get it on there, because I think what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna also pass this through my sewing machine to do a little stitch on this as well. So I'm just gluing this down just to kind of hold it lightly in place to start, and then we'll do a little stitch. All right, so there is that. So as of right now, this is kind of what the cover is looking like. So we have the back cover here. We have the front cover, which will be here. We'll have this little piece that's gonna flip out like this on the front cover. I haven't done anything to the inside yet. And then on the back cover, we have this little piece that flips out on the inside of the back cover. All right, so now I've been playing around with a few other of my pieces, a few more pieces of ephemera, and little bits of lace and other little things to see what I want to do with this cover. So I have this Cherubs and Cherries tag, which I think would be really cute on the front cover, because that is like the title of the theming of this journal. So I also have a little piece of, I had this gorgeous red paper. It's an embossed paper. And I think it was the packaging for something. And I cut off, here's the rest of it. I cut off a square or a rectangle, and this was the tab that was on the end of it. So I cut the tab off, and then I cut this piece off. So I think what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna glue this right to the center of this flip out page on our front cover, because I want to incorporate a little bit more red, because we have a lot of red on our back cover, but we don't have any on our front cover yet. So I definitely want to incorporate that. But I also feel like these lines are too straight. So I'm going to take my scissors and very carefully, I'm just going to kind of distress these edges just a little bit so that they're not so, I don't want to cut them really, but I'm just going to kind of distress them with my scissors so it looks a little bit more worn. Then what I'm gonna do is, I made some mess here with this. It's almost like a fabric paper. It's really pretty. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this aside for just a minute. I have a few other pieces. So this is one of the die cuts from the kit. There's two other little pieces. So this is the cherries with the blue flowers in the background, and then this is a little cherub heart image. Both of these come in the kit. I'm gonna use these with this little die cut. These were die cuts that I actually got off of Temu. There's a whole bunch of different ones. But I like this green one because I like the color. I like how it pulls the greens, and it's just about the right size. It's in the shape of a heart. It's just about the right size to fit this little heart die cut, almost as like a frame. So I'm going to use that as well. But what I want to do is I want to distress some of this cover with some Rub and Buff antique gold. Now, if you've never used this before, this stuff, a very little goes a long way. You don't need much of it. I am going to use just a little sponge, and I have just a little piece. This is just a little piece of cutout cardboard, chipboard. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit. I'm running out of this because I use this a lot. All right, well, my Rub and Buff is just about out, but I ended up cutting it in half, and I still can dig out a little bit of it. I think it's still usable. I'm just gonna go right along the edge with this gold Rub and Buff. You can use your finger. You will need kind of like a fingernail polish remover or something if you do use your fingers for it. I have used my fingers before. Sometimes I feel like using your fingers is easier to apply this because it's not like a paint. It's kind of thick, and a very little goes a long way. It spreads really easily. So as you can see, I'm just going all around the edges, and just like I normally would when I distress something, I'm just using the Rub and Buff to distress. and kind of gold leaf those edges. I'm gonna definitely have to order some more because I'm literally just using little pieces of this now. And I'm getting it all over the place. But you can kind of see how it looks. So there is some gold on the edge of that. I'm also gonna put a little bit of this gold leafing on this, let's see if I can get some on my finger here. Around the edges of this frame, this green colored frame. Just gonna go right around the edges. This is again why I like to use my fingers for this, because you can get it really where you want it and spread it in really good. So there's some gold on the frame. And I won't need any gold on this, but I am going to put some gold on the edge of this image. Now I was thinking about using my glossy accents to cover these images so that they're glossy. Or I could use just Mod Podge. You could use like a crystal Mod Podge as well. Just so that these are like glossy for the cover, so they're a little bit more substantial than just plain paper. The one nice thing, or the one cool thing effect that this gold Rub and Buff does is many of those vintage images and cards have that gold kind of leafing to them. So this kind of gives the image a very authentic vintage look. Even just going lightly around the edges. Now again, this was that linen paper, so the texture of the linen paper really pulls that Rub and Buff really nicely. You can see it's going to go kind of just all around the edges, just really make it look like it's vintage. Go kind of all over those cherries, and there we go. Okay, so I did a few things off camera. I did some stitching around my pieces that I glued on with fabric. So this one right here, which is going to be our front cover. This is the front cover, the larger front cover. So I did some stitching all around here, just some quick messy stitching, nothing, just a straight single stitch with some ivory colored thread. And then I also did a quick stitch just around this fabric on the inside of our back cover. There's our back cover. Here's the inside. So just a quick little stitch there. Okay, so then what I did was all of those little pieces that I did the Rub and Buff, the gold Rub and Buff on, I glued those all on to that gold, I glued all of those images onto that red little piece of embossed cardstock. And we're going to go ahead and glue this right down to the front of our front flap here. And we'll just use our Fabrifix glue for this. Make sure you're using a nice strong glue with all of these layers. All right, so there's enough glue. And I am gonna just center this right in the center of my square, which will be my front flip out of my journal, like that. So now you can see this is kind of coming together. So this is the back, this will be the back, this will be the front cover. This will have a front flip out like this. And then when you open it up, the back flip out will be like this. All right, so I'm gonna finish up this video, just kind of showing you a few final things that I did before I move on to the next step. And the next step will be in the next video. So I actually took this pretty little pearl applique and just glued it to the bottom of our little front flap. And then I glued my Cherubs and Cherries little tab that I tore out to that other red tab. And I distressed all of this with that gold leafing rub and buff as well. So I'm not sure where I'm gonna put this, if I'm gonna put it at the top of my page yet. I haven't glued this down. Nothing is glued. I'm just kind of making pieces. So this is what we've got so far. I'm gonna set this aside and we're gonna start working on some other portions to this journal. We'll see you in the next video. Be sure to subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and we will see you again real soon. Take care.